Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Cultist back again with another logic video. Today we're going to talk about turrets, or how to create a turret for logic, at least a controllable turret, mind you. But the logic is relatively the same for a non-controlled AI turret. And for the purposes of this video, I have made a sculpt, a base, a barrel, and a craft of some sort. I've grouped them all into a single group, as you can see. L1 and X to enter it. If you just tap on them all with X and press X over this thing, you can group. Next, I have attached bolts. I've attached a bolt to the base, a simple connector set to bolt, and the settings are pretty much all blank. I have also, if you use X-ray vision and connectors here in guides, or not guides, here in show and hide, you'll be able to move the bolt around and change the trajectory till you get a nice spin that you want. It's very difficult to get it 100%, correct. At least I find it is. But I'm, making this very quickly, so I don't think it'll matter so much. Next, I have connected another bolt to the barrel. The barrel I have made, well, I could make it non-collidable. I've also made the base non-collidable because I don't think it really matters. If you wanted to make them collidable, though, you could. Simply make sure that they're all labeled something, like machine, and make sure that the craft is labeled machine. Make it so it doesn't collide with anything labeled machine. And that's a way you could do it if you wanted it to be collidable. The only circumstance that I can think of for it to be collidable is if you want damage to specifically only hurt the turret and nothing else. You wouldn't need the barrel to be collidable, probably, though. You could probably leave that and have the base be collidable. But I just thought I'd mention it in case you're interested. Now I've put a microchip on the barrel. So it's kind of like one single, logic piece. I've also made the connector set to use limits. And what you can do is this blue thing acts as the pivot point where the barrel, like if you have the barrel, just set the blue thing to wherever your barrel or thing you want to move is going to be. And the yellow things will act as the limiters for how far it can move. I've also set it to maximum springiness so it won't wobble around. And there's the exact limit. You can kind of compare it to the sculpt. I haven't set this one to springiness because there's a actual reason. I've put a microchip on the base. It has a rotator, which has 100% overall dampening and strength. You could set it to local space as well. And I've copied the logic from a first-person media molecule puppet, since it's kind of the same logic you would use for this turret. If you stamp it out and open this up with L1 and X, just go in there. Just take this right out of here, L1 and R2 to copy it. And these are all the appropriate pieces of logic you're going to need. And I've taken this and I've stuck it on the base microchip for the turret. Everything else is relatively the same. Here in camera pitch, if you go into these keyframes with L1 and X on this timeline, which you can open with L1 and X. But if you're scoped in record mode, you can record the position. That's the maximum height at which the turret can aim. This is the maximum distance at which it can, you know, aim down. I've also turned off the reticle because we don't really need it. And if you want to reverse Y controls, remap thresholds, just turn this on with a switch or something. That's one of the reasons why I like to use this MM logic. It's very useful. R1 is our fire button, which if we go to the muzzle microchip, I've connected an emitter which emits a projectile which I have prepared previously, and the output from object just emitted is connected to another emitter set to emit once, lifetime of 0.5. It emits a little smoke cloud that acts as our muzzle flash, I suppose. And the lifetime of the projectile is 8.0. Only 8 can exist at once. And it's of course set to emit once. And I've put a little reticle using a text displayer out there. It's set to always on top, so it can't be obscured by anything, and it's set to in scene. One of them is a large circular reticle, and the other is a smaller target in the middle. I've also turned down the opacity of both a little bit so they won't obscure your vision too much, but will still be visible enough for you to shoot with. And on the base I've put a camera set to cut and set to hide imps. If you scope in with L1 and X, you can position the camera and then just press this to get out of it. Using the sticks, you can get the angle you want. Left and right stick. Another thing I should mention is you'll want your controller sensor set to possessable and forced possession. I stamped one out here on this larger logic chip that I put outside the entire group. And another thing is go to the camera and yeah, I've turned off the off-screen indicator and the stay on-screen indicator. So that'll help with things. You'll get lots of weird glitchiness if you don't turn those off. I've also put a little mover here just to make the thing travel. I mainly wanted to demonstrate that the barrel is not being pushed by the momentum. Now it is being pushed upwards by the keyframes that are active, because the middle of our aiming process would be about here. But if you set it to this, it will always be down. And momentum isn't really affecting it, so I just wanted to demonstrate that, because there is a thing where if you have bolts, momentum will sometimes affect them. Now on the subject of if you wanted to make this AI turret, the only difference is instead of controlling the muzzle with a keyframe, you would control it with this, a rotator. Well, not that type of rotator, specifically a look-at rotator, set to follow something like, you know, if you open it up with L1 and square, set it to stay upright, maximum, and just set it to track something like a tag called player, which you could put on your player. If you go into here, just stamp out a tag, rename it to player, stamp it out on the puppet's logic or whatever it is you want to target. Put one on the barrel and put one over here. This one will act as the turn, and this one will act as the up and down. I don't know what you call that, the Y-axis. Turn the Y strength off on the base. We'll go ahead and make a little target to serve as a lesson. Give an indicator of what we're talking about. Should be called player. And if you want to move it around, L1 and square, if you open this menu, you can just move this around with R2. You can use grid snap or precise move, both work. They're in guides. But we'll have to turn off this logic if we want to test that. Turn off the camera and the controller. Oh, another thing to mention is that the springiness will actually interfere with the ability for our thing to aim up and down. It will be slightly wobbly, I should mention. Changing the density of it can actually help. Also, making it so it ignores gravity helps. It'll be slightly more responsive. The speed also affects it, because if it's extremely fast, it'll just, you know, stay in place a lot easier. And you can turn up the springiness just a slight little bit if you want it to be less wobbly. But overall, that's probably the best way to get it to aim the way you want it to. Now there is the problem of preventing it. We don't want it to go too far, go beyond its limits. Right there it's just fine, but if we turn this off, there. Because we turned on limits on the bolts, for this part, it won't go too far. That's something to keep in mind if you want to prevent it from, you know, going all the way back and doing something that just doesn't look realistic. Now, another thing you could do is if you want it to fire, all you gotta do is hook up a timeline or something. It's probably a good way. Take out a laser scope. You don't have to use a laser scope, but let's just say I advise it. I think it's cheaper than using a trigger zone, which is the alternative method. And we'll set it so that it only detects a friend. And we'll label this target a friend. And we'll hook this up to the timeline. And we'll just make it so the timeline is set to loop. And we'll put a little switch on the timeline, which will connect to the node. And there we go. It'll automatically shoot. It would even continuously shoot if we set the health lower. There we go. And that's pretty much how you would make an AI version of this whole thing, if you're interested. Now, I should say that the velocity of the vehicle will occasionally affect the turrets. They will, you know, the bolts or whatever on the turret will get kind of funky if you're going at high velocity. So keep that in mind. I've never really noticed it as a major problem with AI turrets. It's more of if you're controlling the turret thing. But frankly, if you're going at high velocity, I feel like you wouldn't have much of a level. You know, you'd just be at the end of it before you even started. So probably not advisable to use high velocity anyway, but I just thought I'd mention it. Also, when it comes to the camera, you know, what kind of viewpoint you want is at your own discretion. I kind of think that this is a good... Oh, let's turn down the springiness. We don't need it. Springiness is uncalled for. I kind of think that this is actually a good viewpoint for a turret. But if you don't really like that and you want something that's a little bit more dynamic and moves with the barrel, you're going to want something really tight and close to the barrel so that it can't clip through any objects. And most video games that feature turret sections do tend to have you very close into the barrel, at least when it's this kind of turret. There are exceptions, of course. Sometimes they don't even show the barrel, they just have you, like, you know, aiming and you can't see anything. But if you wanted a visual of some kind, this is how you'd pull it off. Anyway, I hope you find that helpful. I guess I should mention that R1 is the button that I use to fire. You will want to go into the controller sensor, take the output, and connect it to the appropriate node to fire. So I just thought I'd mention that. But that's pretty much all there is to say about the subject. Hope you find this useful if you're making your own arcade shooter or your turret or something. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was an insightful video or otherwise enjoyable. If it was, then go ahead and subscribe if you can, and hit the bell to keep up with our videos. Also, subscribed or not, give a like. If you have any questions or statements, leave a comment. We try to answer all comments. If you like what we do here and want to help out, consider becoming a channel member. Alternatively, you can check out the link in the description to support us through Patreon. Until next time, take it easy. That's all for now.